Hello, so something very sci-fi to have a look at today. This is the sort of mandible and sort of ballistic goggles, whatever you want to call them, for the Virtus helmet. So this is kind of like a two-part bit. The goggles clip on to night vision mount, and then the mandible connects to this sort of rim along the helmet there. And then as a strap you can put along the back, I think, just to give it a bit more support. So using the night vision mount, you can put these up and down, as so. Obviously there's not much point really having them up, but the whole point of this, from what I can tell, is kind of a multi-role thing. So supposedly it's for vehicle crews to offer some sort of extra frag protection, sort of ballistic protection. Also vehicle crews to stop dust and everything blowing in their face, a bit like a motocross sort of mask or something like that. Probably offers you a bit of protection if you fell off a vehicle as well from breaking your jaw or whatever. And riot control in a similar way to that. So obviously, yeah, that's going to definitely help protect your jaw from being broken if somebody punched you here. Obviously, the design of these sort of things, a few armies have done this. You can see either armies have actually adopted them or just have them in the concept sort of phase, you know, where they thought, oh, this looks good on a piece of paper, but they've not actually adopted them, you know, so they've been at arms expos and that. So that's how it goes back down. It's actually quite hard to see without, because it's got the little sort of clasp there. There we go, I think. Yeah. So, yeah, the idea of these sort of helmets that a few nations have done, you know, or helmet attachments, is just, yeah, it's designed so you can make your standard infantry helmet a bit more protective. So this is kind of just like a more advanced version of having the old ballistic shields that you used to have on, or, you know, like riot type helmet shields, visors. Because on the British Mark 6 helmet you had the mounts, and there's an adapter mount for the Mark 7, so you can put the same ones on it, where you could have, you know, like a polycarbonate kind of face shield come down to give you some shrapnel protection and, you know, obviously like riot protection. So this is a similar thing. The nice thing of this is how lightweight it is. Now, despite the fact that, you know, this is obviously looks quite bulky, it's not very heavy at all. Especially if you had a counterweight on the back, which I don't, but yeah, it's pretty damn light despite how it looks. So yeah, you can sometimes find these on a UK eBay. You can generally find the mandibles and the goggles separately, you know, for like £20 to £50 each. I found a seller that had both bits together for £100, so I just paid that. Some of the sellers going up to about £150, which I think is a bit much, but yeah, obviously it's designed to protect your face from anything flying in and hitting it. You know, how good this is in some ways compared to a big thick polycarbonate visor that comes down, I don't know, because the goggles essentially are that. The mandible, I guess, is designed to be stronger because it's similar material to the helmet. So it's probably that, you know, this stops your jaw being blown off or whatever, but as I said, it's a multi-use sort of thing. Now, how much armies are going to use these things? Obviously this is a UK one, but other nations have done it. I don't know, because as I said, I've seen lots of things where in arms expo sort of things, lots of armies have the equivalent of these, but then when you ever see their infantry in any photos of them being deployed anywhere, they never have these sort of things on. So it's probably one of those things, it's nice to have the option available, but lots of armies won't use it. Another problem I can see with this, obviously, is you can't put a respirator on underneath it for obvious reasons, because of the sort of bulk and shape of it. So again, if lots of armies are expecting troops to be issued respirators, they're probably not going to have these anyway. There's a bit of fogging there, but not too bad, but that's just what you'd expect if you had, you know, your breath coming out going in there. Might be worse in humid climates than sort of non-humid climates or whatever. But yeah, as I said, it's a cool thing. Obviously as well, if you had this on, you have the ballistic things on, you can't have the night vision on. Now, I'm pretty sure that, obviously, with the mandible, that will attach properly anyway without the goggles. So if you took the goggles off, let's actually give that a test, because as far as I'm aware, just trying to feel for the mount release on the night vision. It's somewhere there. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, you can have that bit on, obviously, without these. So this, obviously, as I said, attaches to the sort of rim of the helmet, this bit, and it has that support strap at the back. This is just on the night vision mount, so in theory you could have the mandible on and then have NVGs on as well. So yeah, sort of a weird thing. Interesting though, like I said, because it's one of those things that a few nations seem to have sort of adopted the idea of. Well, I better loosen it at the back to get the actual helmet off. Only thing I don't like with this, and you can probably get a cover for it, is that underneath there's obviously screws so you can tighten that up to the helmet, which is nice, but they're sharp little screws if you just grab the helmet by the underneath like I normally do. You know, you go to grip the rim of the helmet and then, you've put your hand on the screw. But there you go. If I put the helmet over the camera as best I can with this here, that's how it would look looking out. Obviously that's not with the plastic visor on, but the idea is that, yeah, with this close to your face, you don't really see much of a difference with looking out, but you've got jaw protection. So, as said, makes you look a bit sci-fi, sort of, you know, 90s sci-fi, 80s sci-fi looking kind of Terror Trooper sort of looking thing, whatever. Or, like I said, a bit motocross looking, but yeah, multifunctional. So it's cool, obviously, if you have an old helmet. Well, these are new helmets, but you know what I mean. If you have a helmet like this and you see some of the accessories come up for sale with like lots of various military bits in there at a good price, probably worth picking them up, because it's the sort of thing you might actually find a use for if you've got a helmet, especially if you're in somewhere like the US. What I would be very interested in for any of the American viewers is if you ever get a chance to pick up the mandibles for not too much money, do a video shooting them and see what they're actually resilient against. Because as said, I know they're more for frag protection, like bits of shrapnel or rocks flying up from the explosion and the riot control type thing. But because these helmets have proven to be extremely good in ballistic tests at actually stopping things they're not supposed to stop, it wouldn't surprise me if pistol rounds and 22LR and stuff like that would actually bounce off of this, or, you know, cave it in a bit, but save the wearer's jaw behind it. So, there you go. I'm going to just reattach the bit there, if I can get the angle right. Might be easier to put that on actually if I put the visor down again. There you go, I think that's locked in place. Oh yeah, that's a release type switch on this one, not a hold to release switch. But there you go. So as said, you know, it's a bit, it will shake around a bit. It's not designed to be like completely really tight, but it's not going to come loose either, sort of thing, if you know what I mean. It's one of those sort of, once you put it on properly, you're going to have to release it via its mounts to get it off, but, you know, it has got a bit of wobble and play to it, even if you have all the same helmet sizes, you know, together, because they're obviously designed to move around. Also, the bit of movement in it might actually give it better protection to your jaw, because there's some of the bits of armour like this, if this moves when it's hit, it means that, you know, obviously not all the force of the impact goes into your jaw, or whatever. So yeah, because I'll just actually show you now with the, now I've put the visor back on, what that looks like. So yeah, there you go. Like I said, they're pretty cool things. Again, it reminds me a lot of things like Halo and the old Command and Conquers and that, like the GDI Troopers or whatever. Because again, lots of military stuff now is kind of going back to looking really sci-fi looking. But yeah, like I said, it has a practical purpose. The point of it is to protect your jaw from being blown off or whatever, or you know, somebody punching you in the face, breaking your jaw, breaking your nose or whatever, if you're using it in a riot control situation. But yeah, the practicality, I imagine things like this as well aren't going to be used as much as maybe the designers thought, because as I said, if it gets in the way of other mounting things and respirators, helmets are probably going to be set up more for that kind of use, just so you can quickly take the helmet off, put a respirator on, put the helmet back on, as you'd expect them to be used more commonly in military things. And I said that's those sort of screw bits there, so you can see where the helmet on either side is sort of where that bit is. But yeah, what I might do once I finish this video is actually fully tighten those screws and just see how well that, you know, brings the mask, the mandible bit up to there. But yeah, it mounts, as you can see, on the actual kind of top rim. Obviously some of what you do as well to get that tight, as I said, is this strap, so I assume that just is meant to be tightened over the top or the back of the helmet. But yeah, as I said, it's an interesting thing. I'm glad I've got one and didn't pay, you know, silly money for one, because I've seen these before for hundreds of pounds, and, you know, like I said, unless I was getting both bits for about 100 like I paid, I wouldn't want to do that. The helmet is still the most expensive bit of this, you know. Good luck finding a Virtus helmet for a good amount of money, but yeah, still, it's an interesting thing. Glad I picked one up, and, you know, we'll see in the future if things like this become more common, or if it dies out like lots of, you know, armour type gear where they decide it's too cumbersome or bulky or whatever.
Okay, and a pointless bit of bonus footage. I know that's not a perfect fit, but this actually works surprisingly better than I thought with a gas mask under it. The gas mask still seems to be airtight, and this still seems to be covering most of the facepiece. So, yeah, it turns out some masks, even though this definitely wasn't built with a Chinese mask in mind, do actually work to some degree with this, so colour me surprised.